To stay alive, trying to find me shawty and make her mine. Now I'll find one in no time. With the help of my homies, I'm going out with my bros. With my bros.
All right, bruh fans, and if you haven't watched bruh, you need to watch the damn show. There's only 2 episodes left. November 12th will be the ending of season 1. So, just to throw it out there, if you haven't watched the show, wait until the middle of this month. You can binge the entire thing during your 7-day free trial on BET Plus, or you can wait until Thanksgiving Day. Why do I say that? Ruthless will be returning for the back half of season 1, and on Thanksgiving we're getting 3 episodes for the return. So if you want to wait until the week of Thanksgiving, or essentially after Thanksgiving Day, it depends on how you want to do it. For that 7-day free trial period, you can binge bruh and watch the first 15 episodes of Ruthless. Just putting that out there. So before going further, let's talk about what's free. Not a $9.99 plus tax subscription to BET Plus, but showing my channel some love, especially on the video. So go ahead and hit the thumbs up to like it. Hit that subscribe button. You know what? Let's try to get to I want to put it out there. Let's try to get to 100 likes on this video because it's a big deal about what I'm about to say in this video. Hit subscribe to help me reach 150,000 by the end of the year. Honestly, I feel like I'm lowballing because literally 3 minutes before hitting record for this video, my channel hit 149,000 subscribers. So I'm pretty sure we'll hit 150, but just to make sure, hit subscribe. You see that little bell? Go ahead and hit it and hit allow all notifications. That way you know when I post content to the channel, whether it be a new video, a post on a community tab, something on the YouTube story, or when I do a live stream. And finally, go down to that description box. You will see links to all of my social media in order to follow me down there. You know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group, Facebook page, all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's talk about bruh. Season 1, episode 22, entitled Better Late, or excuse me, Better, not Better, Better Late Than Never. The synopsis: Bill lays it all on the line for Regina. Tom tries to help a patient get away from her abusive husband, and Mike changes plans on Pamela at the last minute. All right, so the episode picks up where we left off with Bill giving a proposal to Regina in A&J sandwich shop. Now, I think I mentioned this on Instagram or I think in my episode review for episode 21, I think I glossed by the proposal just because it seemed out of nowhere. But I'm mentioning it now, so I'm saying it where it counts. Basically, Bill is trying to, I don't know if I would say prevent Regina from leaving, but essentially stop her from leaving without him. Now, he's on his knee for probably about the first 3 minutes of the episode before Regina makes him get up. Now, if you're watching the scene, several people in the restaurant are turning their heads trying to see, ooh, a proposal? What's going on here? Okay. I've only seen one proposal in my life. One. I remember it was during final season, during my sophomore year of college. I went up to North Campus to get some lunch. Well, no, it was actually early in the morning. I went to North Campus to get some Chick-fil-A. I was at the bus stop. Remember, this is like the end of the semester, so there weren't a lot of people around. Groups of people going to take finals, and they would disperse and go wherever. I was sitting at the bus stop. I was literally by myself. I remember it was like a cloudy day. I remember this guy had his car pulled up like outside of the door. So he was just waiting. He was like, chilling. He was trying, I was wondering what he was doing because he stopped his car and he like tried to pose, by the trunk to look cool. He had his his leg crossed and everything. He was trying to look cool. I believe he had like a poster board and a balloon. So I believe when his girl came out of the door from finals, she went and she ran up to him and it was like a proposal and it was like, oh snap. So he got down on the knee, gave her the ring, they hugged, and then they drove off. And I remember, they kind of looked over because I saw the whole thing, I don't know if I smiled or whatever. I wasn't mean, but I was like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to see that. So that was the first and only time I've ever seen a proposal go down in my real life. So it didn't happen it didn't happen in the sandwich shop. It essentially happened after, hey, you finished finals. You know what's even better? Proposal. Yeah, am I bitter for never getting a relationship in college? Maybe. But anyway, let's get back to the show. So we have Bill being told by Regina to get up because it's just the first 5 minutes weren't bad. I'm just not a fan of this storyline because Bill is not a good person. Look, no, hey Monty, if you're watching this, no shade. Bill just is not a good character because of the fact that he's certainly tone deaf to it all. Regina and John call him out, saying that, are you sure you really love Regina? Or do you just resent the fact that you lost what you basically lost a good thing, quite possibly the best thing that ever happened in your life because you didn't realize what you had until it was gone. And to be honest, it actually could relate to the title of the episode, Better Late Than Never. But even though, better late than never is the slogan, Bill being late certainly didn't help in this situation. Now, this doesn't mean that Regina is never going to be with Bill, but right now isn't the time. So she gets up and leaves and asks him not to go because of the fact Bill kept saying, I'll go to LA with you. I'll propose to you. It's like, I'm being the man you always wanted me to be. And it's like, where were you 2 years ago when I needed you? Boom. Pick your face up off the floor, Bill. So she goes on to, say, I'm going to go. And he's like, well, can I get your number? I will call you. Well, yeah, just give me your number. No. I will call you, Bill. And then he even takes it a step further because she's trying to drill it into his mind. Like, look, are you even listening to what I'm saying about me needing to be alone to think things over? And he even takes the next step saying, promise me this. I'm like, Bill, you're in no position to make these kind of suggestions. He wants Regina to not be with anyone else. Basically, wait for me. It's like, look, I won't even look at another woman. I won't be with another woman until you get back. And it's like, Bill, you don't get to do it. She waited 2 years for you after you treated her like dirt and kicked her to the curb, per Mike's advice. And I'm not blaming Mike because Bill made his own choices. So after he gets up and walks away, John comes to the table and, just tells him, you effed up, right? I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing what John said, but that's essentially what's going on. He just wants to make sure Bill's okay and to prevent him from doing something rash, which, again, if you go back to like the ending of episode 20, I still have no idea why John went to tell Bill what Regina was doing, because if you looked at the events that took place the previous day between Bill and Regina, then John should have known better than to tell Bill what the hell was going on. Where was Alice after whoop his ass? That's what should have went down. And I don't dislike John. I'm just saying that this was a bad move. So Bill's in his feelings about the whole situation. And he's like, well, I was the man that, I was giving her everything she wanted. And like John is right to point out, but look at how it all happened. You literally ruined her marriage, spooked her halfway. Well, I don't know what state this takes place in. Wait. I believe it is Georgia because all the Tyler Perry shows happen in Georgia, aside from If Loving You Is Wrong. Yeah. So John is essentially saying, is this really what you expected from the white? Oh yeah, I think he even mentioned the white horse and everything to Regina, but that's kind of irrelevant because we never got to see the horse. And John is pretty much saying, just give her some space, man. So who's to say things won't work out? Because there's 2 episodes left in the season. Who's to say Regina decides not to go and stay with Bill? I pray to God Bill does not pop up at the airport, because if he does, that's even more tone deaf than he's been acting thus far, which will give Regina even more incentive not to be with him. And it's kind of interesting when you look at the dynamic between Pam and Mike versus Regina and Bill. But I want to wait to do those videos until after the season is over, because I'm going to do a big season overview for this show. So after, Bill is about to leave, a woman approaches him, and it turns out this woman was actually in the background watching the entire situation between Regina and Bill. She essentially liked what she saw and wanted to hook up with Bill, but Bill's like, nah, I ain't feeling it. And then she's like, yo, your mother, you stuck up mother, basically just upset and scorned that, she got rejected. Then she tries to come on to John and he's like, nah, girl, I'm gay. And then he gets up and, leaves the restaurant. So from there, we go back to the hospital and hang on. Did I write this in my notes? Crap. Did I write this in my notes? All right, so it's in my other notebook, which I threw away. Never mind. But in any case, we go back to the hospital with Tom and the victim of domestic violence, the woman who's married to the cop. And Tom is pleading with her to allow him to help in regards to putting her in a shelter and her children for her safety, because this woman has said, I've tried to get away, it didn't work. He's the police. Hey, this shelter will work. And Tom pleads with her to allow him to help her. He even brings up his backstory because it's like, well, wait, what do you know about the shelter? You stay here in the, you're privileged and everything. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, my first instinct was Tom would probably bring up, I'm black. There are certain privileges that you assume because I'm a doctor and work in a hospital that honestly I'm not privy to. But he took another route by bringing up his backstory. My gosh. Turns out that Tom had to watch his mother be abused by his stepfather, I believe. And all the times that his mother didn't want to get help, it obviously was something she paid for. The longer she stayed, the more the abuse happened. And one day she was beaten so bad, I believe Tom said, I had to look in my Boy Scout handbook and I found out how to make a sling. And that was pretty much the beginning of my journey into medicine. And as a result, that's how he became a doctor. And then the shelter that his mom actually agreed to go into with Tom is what helped him out. So this same shelter that he's recommending to this patient is the same shelter that he donates his time and talents to now. So he knows what he's talking about when he offers this woman some help. However, she still refuses, but he says, hey, promise me this. Here's my number. Call me if you need help for that shelter, and I'll see if I can get you the help that you need, please. But then his boss comes in, and I forgot his name. I'm sorry. I wrote it down. But basically, his boss dismisses Tom from the room, saying that he'll handle this. And he leaves out fume because of the fact that this is the same doctor that usually sees this patient. Now, again, I'm sorry I forgot the name. I feel bad because of the research I did. I paid attention to the end credits to get the doctor's name. Then I went back to episode 21 when the woman kept saying, what are you doing in here? I usually see Dr. So-and-so who gives me the pain meds. Turns out this doctor is Tom's boss, and Valerie tells him to back off, leave it alone. Your boss will get you fired. He's like, I don't care. Look, we got to see another patient. Come on. And Valerie leads him away. Now you're probably thinking, Jeremy, how come you're not being hard on Valerie like you were with John? What do you mean? Well, remember a few episodes ago at the end, episode 20, you were mad about John going over to tell Bill about Regina and how, hey, she's about to leave. Oh, she's at the sandwich shop. You need to get dressed so you can go. But then at the beginning of episode 21, the first 5 minutes were spent with John essentially telling Bill to back down, almost as if the last 5 minutes, episode 20 were irrelevant and didn't happen. Yeah, because that was just bad continuity and John was acting extremely out of character. In this situation, in episode 21, Valerie was the one who was telling Tom to take this patient instead of his boss, which at the time we didn't know the boss's name, or that the previous doctor that saw this patient was Tom's boss. Basically, Valerie was kind of pushing Tom to the situation because she figured Tom being Tom would actually help this person, because it turned out Valerie was also a person who dealt with domestic violence. Then we get into episode 22, and then we meet this guy who is Tom's boss. And then Valerie's like, leave it alone. So, Jeremy, why aren't you being hard on Valerie like you were on on John? Because she's being highly inconsistent. 1 minute she's pushing Tom into this patient. Not like that. She's pushing this patient onto Tom, but now she's telling Tom to back off. Here's the thing. My guess is that she was pushing this patient on Tom because she thought that Tom could legitimately help without the doctor knowing. But once the boss found out that's when she's like, okay, Tom, you need to back away from it. My guess in terms of why Tom's boss came into the room was because the woman's husband, who's the police officer, probably contacted the doctor to say, hey, my wife is at the hospital. One of your employees is making things hard and isn't giving her the pills. You need to handle it before I do. And then probably that's why the doctor came in when he did. That's just a guess. And Tom's backstory was pretty deep and something that I relate to on a personal level, but I'm not going any further than that. So that was easily the... Okay, I can't decide if that scene with Tom was the best or the next scene of the episode was the best because, well, we got a Sistas bruh crossover. Holy crap. Oh, yeah, sorry. This was something I completely glossed over when I was originally recording my bruh review. If you watch it, then you know that it was very long. Possibly the longest bruh related video I've done, or at the very least the longest bruh episode review. But more to the point, when I talked about Tom dealing with his boss who pretty much got him off the case with the domestic violence victim, I failed to mention that, and honestly I could just do a separate video on this, but I might as well plug it in here. We have Tom's boss, who was said by Valerie that, hey, he could have you fired if you try to get back on this domestic violence case. So I think we should just walk away. And it's quite possible that if Tom tries to interfere again, or if something happens where his boss didn't like how he handled the situation, then Valerie did say that he could have him fired. I'm one to think that it's quite possible that even if Tom's boss tries to get him fired, the chief might be the one to make that final decision. And if it's down to the chief making the call to get Tom fired or keep him aboard with maybe some, a slap on the wrist or reprimand, kind of like what she did with Valerie, despite her false allegations towards Tom, I'm wondering if it might be a situation where the chief would put Tom in a position where he would either get fired or sleep with her in order to save his job, which could be a nod to what's going to happen potentially in the next episode of Sistas, where we have Officer Rhea telling Zach, so if I can get you out of here, what's in it for me? Or what would you do for me? Which could imply that if Officer Rhea gets Zach out of jail, then he would have to sleep with her. So just throwing that out there. Didn't know hospital politics were that dirty, but seems to be so. So yeah, sorry about that. I am plugging this in during the editing stage, and hope this doesn't take away from the flow of the video, but just had to throw this in here. But thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and let's get back to the discussion. Andy is in the house. Well, technically she's in the loft with Mike, and they're working on a case for one of their clients. Yeah, I was legitimately surprised because I did not think we would see Andy again during season 1. No joke. This is a big deal. So Andy asked, if she could use a restroom, and Mike points her in the direction, watches her as she walks away. So was I. So he gets a phone call from Pam, and essentially, she's on the road, and Mike is asking, hey, how about you come over for dinner? And could you cook? And then she's like, oh, well, maybe I'll cook, or maybe I'll bring the ingredients. She's playing hard to get at first, but essentially it's like, fine. I'll, we'll get dinner, and I'll stay the night. And, Mike's all happy. And then next thing you know, she gets off the phone. And again, it's just the chemistry between these two. Still don't like, I feel like I can't decide who I dislike more, Mike or Bill, because again, I know some Mikes back from college, and in terms of my bruh group or friend group, like the asshole who still gets the girl, where I'm still single. Yeah, my bitterness comes through when I record these videos. You can probably tell that. Pam's smile, just freaking grade A material. Just, So then, Mike gets off the phone, and then Andy comes back and gets back to work, and he makes a comment about how she looks beautiful today. And Andy's like, that's harassment, right? I could turn you in for that. What are you going to do? Sue me? I just might. And, they kind of have a little bit of playful banter. And, this is the most interesting line from the episode. But before I do that, no, actually, hang on. I'll save my Mike and Pam thing for a second here. So Andy kind of warms up to Mike saying, okay, on a personal level, I want to ask you a question or get your opinion on something. My girlfriends and I, Sabrina, Karen, and Danny, their names were not mentioned, but dang it, we can all assume those are the women that she's talking about. They're all having problems with men. And pretty much Mike kind of scoffs and says, okay, I know how this conversation is going to go. To be honest, men, we just need to grow up. We need to become more mature. And Andy's like, thank you, I knew it. And then Mike kind of flips the script saying, well, just, hey, some women need to do the same as well. Andy is quick to kind of shut him down because Mike is rightfully saying that, hey, I'm hearing you out. I'm giving you the advice that you're asking for. But at the same time, recognize that just like men, some men need to grow up, mature, and be better men. Some women need to mature and become better women as well. Andy ain't trying to hear that because she automatically assumed that because Mike brought that up, that the conversation would flip in regards to, oh, you'll just say a bunch of pro-man bull crap to defend why men are dogs. And Mike is like, well, I'm just trying to be fair. It's like, you can't ask me a question like that, expect me to tell you exactly what you want to hear without calling out women for not being perfect as you want men to be. I love this conversation. I will probably do a separate video on this conversation alone. It's not even 5 minutes long, but there's so much material here to work with because if you've been watching my Sistas reviews, or is it Sistas review or should I say sister? Basically the reviews I do on the current episodes of Sistas season 2. You will know in those episodes I bring up the fact that I don't hate Andy, and a lot of the things she says in regards to black women, their struggles, and men in general, she's not incorrect, but I don't like that those lines of dialogue are coming from Andy's mouth considering the foul things that she has done. Basically, this scene is a reflection of that, and I love it. Oh, I'm sorry, I got a little intense there. My bad. Go back to last week's episode of Sistas when she's in bed and Sabrina's trying to get her up, and she's like, you know what, I hate men. I just want to give love and be loved. And I'm thinking, well, Andy, if you gave that love to like an unmarried man, then maybe things would have turned out differently for you. So her saying she hated men, and then this scene with her and Mike talking about, oh, men are dogs. It lined up perfectly. I loved it. And another thing is, you have, and as I've said, the asshole of the bruh group Mike in a scene where he's actually not being an asshole. That comes afterwards when he gets a phone call from Pam, but I'll get to that. He wasn't an ass when he told Andy this advice. He was literally being genuine, saying that men need to grow up. And to be honest, he might be talking from his own experience based off his relationship with Pam. But he wasn't just going to sit there and have Andy rag on all men instead of looking at it like, hey, me and my girlfriends, we're having men problem, but instead of just instantly jumping on the all men are dogs, all men are immature, instead of just jumping aboard that train, let's evaluate what myself and my girlfriends are bringing to their interactions with these men, and perhaps that could explain why there's some conflict. Maybe the conflict and the issues and the relationships or dynamic with the opposite gender isn't just the men. Maybe what we're bringing to the table, drama, distrust, all those things could possibly make those relationships bad. Am I reading too much into this? Probably not, because honestly, this was a well-crafted scene. Yes, I've had my issues with some of the Tyler Perry writing, but damn it, when it comes to scenes like this is where Tyler Perry's pen, well, I don't know if I'm assuming he types his scripts rather than writes, but either way, Tyler Perry, gold. Like literally, when I saw Andy there, I even made the post on Instagram. Even when Bellamy comes in a couple seconds later, I'm like, this feeling is what the feeling I get or got when I was a kid and I would see the Power Rangers team up. It's like, oh, the In Space team is teaming up with Lost Galaxy. Or Forever Red when you had 10 Red Rangers at once. This is what I love, the continuity. Now, Bellamy comes in, and here's another thing I want to bring up. I believe it was mentioned in Sistas that in the law firm there are only 4 black people. Hayden and Mike are the only 2 black males. Andy is the only black female lawyer, and Fatima is like the secretary or administrative assistant. I don't know what her official title is, but correct me if I'm wrong, but those are the only four black people that work in the firm, correct? Please, somebody let me know. I'm pretty sure that's right. So when there's a knock on the door and Mike says come in and it's Bellamy, he's like, oh, not this much. Like, obviously it seems like he isn't a big fan of Bellamy. And just another nod to, does anybody in this Tyler Perry universe lock their damn doors? Well, in any case, Bellamy comes in, and just looking at how Mike reacts to him, it's just one of those things where either Mike doesn't have a good relationship with him, or the fact that he could just, smell that him being a sleazeball a mile away. So he pretty much brings up, hey, I just wanted to check in with you all. Thank you for doing this, off hours, because apparently it's a big case. He comes by to say one of their clients, Madeline Gustav, is going through a divorce and wants a settlement. However, there will be some tax issues with it. And I was wondering if you could come up with a solution before the settlement is presented on Tuesday. And, Andy is looking a bit concerned at Mike, and who's smiling about it. And, Bellamy's like, Andy, are you okay with that? And she's like, of course. And then when he leaves, Mike is kind of smug, saying, oh, yeah, we get to finish this conversation after all, in regards to the conversation about men and women. And he's pretty much like, hey, well, I can order some dinner. No, I'm not hungry. I can make us some coffee. Nope, I had some before I came. Because she pretty much says, instead of, working at my place or working at your office, let's go ahead and crank out the settlement right now. So they're getting to work. And from there, Mike calls Pam and lets her know that it wouldn't be a good idea for her to come over tonight because he's busy working. And I don't have a problem with him informing Pam of this, because Pam's like, hey, I got the stuff, so I'm getting ready to cook and then bring it over and whatnot. It's just the way that Mike was so dismissive about it. Like, you go back to the first call where he's, trying to be all sweet and persuasive, and Pam wasn't buying it, but then eventually she kind of caved in. But now he's being all, yeah, that dinner I said, I don't, tonight might not, it wouldn't be a good night. And, yeah, you might not want to come over. I'm working. And, oh, wait, so you don't even want me to stay tonight? No, I got a lot to do. I'll call you. I'll text you in the morning. We can get breakfast. Okay. And it's like, oh, this son of a angry Pam is adorable, but I certainly wouldn't want to make her mad. So this was the little bit of the asshole Mike that I'm like, okay, come on, Mike. You're trying to get on Pam's good side. She wants to do the slow walk, and you're going to make her walk even slower if you keep doing this crap. Because here's what I think is going to happen. Pam is going to come over, because even though Mike is working late, if she worked hard to make that dinner, she's at least going to come by to bring him the food. I can see that happening. And here's another thing that might happen. The conversation between Andy and Mike might resurge in regards to the men versus women thing about men being dogs. And maybe Andy might give a little ground saying, you know what, maybe I was tripping a little bit. And that's why, and my girl's tripping too. So maybe that's why there's so much friction between my girlfriends and I and the men we're dealing with. So when things seem to be going well with the conversation, and maybe even to Mike and Andy, Pam's going to come a knocking on the door, come in and be like, oh, so this is why you didn't want me to come over. Oh, yeah, you're working, huh? Oh, you're Andrea from The Office. Oh, I see what's going on. And then Andy's going to be like, girl, is he playing you? He just tried to, throw some, spit some game at me about how men aren't dogs. And it's kind of like the couple episodes ago where, Mike called that one girl down to his loft sorry, loud vehicles. It's like 1:45 a.m. What are people doing? That woman that came down from like upstairs, and Mike wanted sex, but no, not sex, but just to hold her. And then she called him out for, oh, you're in love with a girl in the blue sports car. And then Pam came over, and then they both kind of ganged up on Mike, but then they became closer. I could see the same happening between Pam and Andy, where they both call out, Mike for being a dog. And then that could relate to episode 3 of Sistas season 2, where Fatima and Andy were talking about who could help Andy out in this situation. And it's like, well, Mike does taxes. And then it's like, oh, because, Andy gave the look of disdain about that ass. So this scene could be related to that one. And yeah, holy crap. This was amazing. Now, with that being said, to take it a step further, when Bellamy mentioned Madeline Gustav, I had to go back and look at the information for episode 1 of Sistas, because of the scene where the first scene we see Andy in. She's trying to get a settlement for her client at the law firm. And I was like, wait a minute, could this scene between Andy and Mike solidify some sort of timeline where Bruh season 1 takes place with Sistas season 1? Unfortunately, no, because of the fact that the woman who Andy was representing in the first episode of Sistas was named Helen Green, not Madeline Gustav. Because if it was Madeline Gustav, then this scene between Mike and Andy here would have taken place prior to episode 1 of Sistas, which in fact would confirm that for the most part, season 1 of Bruh takes place before episode 1 of Sistas. I can't confirm that now, unfortunately, but the argument could be made that, you know, with Andy dealing with Gary, things haven't hit the head it did in season 1 of Sistas. So at the moment, I'm inclined to think that Bruh season 1 takes place before episode 1 of Sistas. Until something else, you know, comes up that could prove me wrong. That's what my headcanon says. So without further ado, I'm pretty sure that wraps up the episode because, you know, Mike had called Pam, called off the dinner plans. He is, you know, obviously dismissive, and Pam is pissed. So better late than never. I feel like this title is very appropriate due to the fact that, well, better late than never makes sense because, like I said, I was not a big fan of the Regina wedding saga, if you will, where we had like 4 to 5 episodes focusing on the wedding. And, you know, those were kind of the weakest or worst episodes of season 1. But here we go with a flipping episode that turns the tide, and quite arguably the best episode of season 1 of Bruh so far. I am not hesitant when I say that this episode deserves a... I can't give it a 10. I'm sorry, because of the Bill scene. It's just like, it's episode 22 and he's still being oblivious about the whole situation with Regina. And you could argue, well, when he was talking with John, it seemed pretty clear that he understood what Regina wanted, what he lost out on. But I'm just afraid that with 2 episodes left, Bill is going to do something incredibly selfish. And that would just mean the repetitive scenes between him and Regina literally meant nothing because he's still having this rash behavior. But the freaking Sistas cameo with Andy and Bellamy and Tom giving his backstory, you know, we didn't have Miss Alice in it, but it was still a great episode. I'm going to give this episode begrudgingly a 9.5 out of 10. Like, again, I wanted to give it a solid 10, but the whole Bill thing brought it down for me. So, but then again, you could make the argument, well, Jeremy, you're a sucker for continuity. What about the insight of, remember in episode 2? Was it episode 2? Basically, when Bill was in the sandwich shop, he met up with Peter, and he said that I was hiding from, you know, I'm hiding from, you know, Crazy Ex who had a bad breakup. And then that's where he and Regina were reintroduced. And then we flip it to now where Bill is trying to propose to Regina, be the man that she wanted, but then she walks out on him. Yeah, but no, just his attitude. 9.5 out of 10. So, arguably the best episode of Bruhs yet. There are 2 episodes left. Who knows? This episode could be like the tip of the iceberg. Not the tip, but maybe like the mid part. And the next 2 episodes will blow me away. This one certainly did. So without further ado, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you think of this episode of Bruh? Seriously, I've watched it 7 times. That's how good it was. I'm not lying. The episode's only 21 minutes. Yeah, I watched it that many times because I wanted to make sure I picked up on everything. And if I missed anything, let me know. Because did you think my interpretation of the Andy and Mike conversation was correct? Do you agree with my theory that season 1 of Bruh takes place before episode 1 of Sistas season 1? And yeah, what other kind of crossovers would you like to see? Because holy crap, this blew my mind. So without further ado, go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you would like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal, Cash App, or hit me up on Patreon. You can join the fund for as little as $1 a month. And I'm literally kind of stalling because I feel like there's something I should have said, but hang on. Mike Bellamy. Nope, I said it all. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.